of Southern History at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, where he was my professor and mentor for a few years. After that, he went and spent 2 years as Vice President of Liberty Learning Foundation. He's authored 2 books, multiple articles and blogs on history, Southern culture, and American society. John is excited to get to work and make the Singing River Trail a reality for North Alabama. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, so the big question is, are you in?
We lost your mic.
Welcome Dr. John Kvach to the Singing River Trail.
I got stuck in traffic here, so I apologize. If I had to scream, I can't. I have enough energy. I'm sitting there. Is this on? I don't think it is. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure what I'm pressing. You know what? The good news is, I taught for 22 years. If I can't scream at you, I screamed where Crystal Edmonds. I screamed at her for 4 years at UAH. So I don't think this is going to work for me. Can you all hear me okay?
I'm here.
Oh, here's
If I don't have to scream,
All right.
wow.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. My name is John Kvach, and I'm sorry for being late. I was in Jackson County this morning, and I had more than enough time. And I got to your I-65 bridge, and I thought, oh my gosh, today I don't have to go to Decatur, so I don't have to go across those old bridges and get stuck. No, I still got stuck. So I apologize. But the good news is I'm here, and I'm sorry that I am late, but I think for you all, hopefully you'll find this entertaining, but you also maybe challenge you to think a little bit more about how we tie something in that really has been part of your past, your present, but hopefully it'll become part of your future. And so, just out of a show of hands, out of curiosity, how many of you have heard about the Singing River Trail? Okay, good. I like this. So, a friendly audience, I hope, maybe. And someone else who's not here, that wanted to be here in the worst sort of way, is Danielle Gibson, the executive director of the Decatur Morgan County Tourism Group. And she's in marketing college right now, somewhere in Georgia. She couldn't be here, but she deputized me to speak on her behalf too. So if I say anything that's not right, it's her fault. But I want to let you know that something has been happening for the last 2 years. And so for me, you heard my introduction, is that I'm a Southern historian by training. For me, it's looking at our past and trying to figure out how do we leverage our past? How do we begin to use the things that are here? And it's great to drive through. I don't get to come through Hartselle very often. It's not part of the Singing River Trail right now. That's kind of maybe foreshadowing. Is that to be able to drive through a beautiful downtown and see how you've used things like this and be able to see a quaint southern town along the highway, you pull off and you have things that aren't just a bunch of chains, it matters a whole lot. And so when I took over as the executive director of the Singing River Trail, I'm hoping does this work or something? Or?
Yes, just cue me, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
okay. There. Okay. So, cue you?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that, so for me, I'm going to start at the kind of, I guess, the start. It's always a good place to start. That a group called Launch 2035 was formed in 2014, and Launch 2035 was a nonprofit regional collaborative group that was really looking to see what would we need, what would we want in the next, so many years, kind of leading up to 2035. And so at this point, I'm just a professor at UAH, minding my own business, not part of any of this. But in the meantime, these folks are beginning to work on the idea with a consultant who comes in and talks about what do we need as a region, what do we need not just as Hartselle, not just in Morgan County, but across North Alabama. And what they came up with was the idea that we need entrepreneurship, we need land use, and we need good workforce development as key components to bring people into North Alabama. In fact, I was just part of a SWAT meeting yesterday with TARCOG, which is one of our, NARCOG. Sorry, I have too many cogs in my life right now. NACOG, NARCOG, and TARCOG is, I'm glad Robbie's not here to hear me stumble on his name, but NARCOG, say I recorded for it. Okay, I like this. Keep me on task. Is that working with the cogs is that you begin to see that there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of great things. But yesterday at the SWAT meeting, it was interesting, is a lot of things that were our strengths were also our weaknesses. And a lot of things that came up to the top, kind of bubbling up to the top, were things like outdoor recreation, quality of life. Those are the kinds of things that bring people here. And right now, when we're trying to recruit FBI agents from Virginia, Maryland, or DC, they'll look at Huntsville, or they'll look at Hartselle, they'll look at Madison County, and they'll look at Morgan County. And they're like, okay, well, we can go look at it. And then they see the word Alabama, and there's a problem there. And this is an acknowledged problem that we don't necessarily believe in, but it's a perception that still exists. And so how do we overcome our last name? And I don't say that lightly, because for a lot of people, that's a source of pride. So what I'm saying, though, is it's a reality. If you're only getting about 30% of the FBI agents to come down here, you can deny it, you can argue with me, and that's fine. All right, I'm with you. I like it here. I was not born here. I got here as quickly as I could, and I chose to live here. This was not a product of me just graduating high school and sticking around. This was me coming here because I wanted to be here. And so when they began to look at the possibilities of what could be, one of the first things that came up was the Singing River Trail. The idea literally started with a guy named Joe Campbell, who's the chief counsel for the Huntsville hospital system, saying, why don't we connect the Calhoun campuses in Decatur and Huntsville? That'd be great. And then from there, it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing. And before you know it, you actually have an idea about what could we do with a greenway system. So think of 12-foot wide pedestrian walkway for bikers, for hikers, e-bikes, strollers, wheelchairs. You know, if you want to lay down and take a nap, I don't care, right? Just don't do it in the greenway. But this is the idea of connectivity, of regional collaboration. And this really kind of came about due to this growth of this idea. Chris, let me change the slide. And what they came up with was they came up with a 3-county, 70-mile trail system that would connect, primarily would connect. And there's a point that I'm bringing all this up because I want you to understand how this all worked together, is that the idea of connecting Huntsville, Madison, Decatur, and Athens was a great one. And in fact, they spent about $200,000. They got 33 private donors to raise about $200,000 to do a master plan. And what they came up with was a really great master plan for this 3-county initiative. And the part that I think frustrated me when I took over in July 2020 is that that picture shows us touching Decatur, but in reality never really talked about this side of the river at all. When they say touching Decatur, what they really meant was getting to the north shore of the Tennessee River and stopping right there. And so when I met with the leadership of Morgan County and Decatur, the first thing that Tab Bowling told me is that I feel like a pimple on the side of your map. Never a good sign how you start a meeting, by the way. I don't want you to feel like a pimple on the side of my map. So I decided to do something a little more, maybe a little more risky, but since I'm the only one that gets a paycheck, I thought, well, I'm also the only one that'll lose a job if it doesn't work out, is I took this in July 2020. This was the idea. This is why I was hired. I had left UAH by this time. Can't teach another day of my life if you put a gun in my head. I loved it. I did it for 24 years. I can't do it for another day. All right. It's not because of her, by the way. So the idea is this is your job. Well, after about 3 months, my job began to change in my head because we were starting to get phone calls from mayors in Bridgeport and Scottsboro and Guntersville and Town Creek and Layton and Cortland and Florence. And I began to listen. What I thought about is, there are no trail police. There are no trail hit squads. If I decided unilaterally that I just wanted to make this a bigger trail, what's going to stop me? I'm the one that has to raise all the money anyways. I have to raise my own salary. And in fact, it seems like more the merrier. So in fact, go ahead. What we did is we decided why not do this the right way? Well, why not do this as big as we can? And this is the part that excites me most, because when you see in this map is 8 counties. So you see Jackson County, Marshall County, Madison County, Morgan County, Limestone County, Lawrence County, Colbert County, and Lauderdale County. You see 26 communities as big as Huntsville and as small as Cortland, maybe Cane Rock's even smaller than Cortland. You see a whole lot of people on those orange dots, or the dots that represent cities and towns. But the thing I want you to remember is that the people who live along those green lines also count as much as the people who live in those towns and cities. Rural Alabama has an opportunity to grow, and rural Alabama has an opportunity to benefit from something. So I love that we're doing all these initiatives, right? All these things in our towns and our cities. But I can tell you this, and since we have a representative in the room, and he already knows this, are things like rural broadband matter for a whole lot of people. For you all, internet is a luxury that you don't think twice. If your phone is slower than it normally is, you get mad. Well, I'll tell you this, when I have meetings in Paint Rock, Alabama, literally 15 miles from the center of what we call the Star of Alabama, when I log on to meet with the mayor in his office, we literally have to go through, remember the old sound of AOL.com, that screeching sound? That's the sound I hear every time I'm in Paint Rock. Paint Rock town, Paint Rock, the town of Paint Rock. So I want you to think about that. That's 15 to 20 miles from Gig City, and people are still dialing up. So how do you have equity? How do you have connectivity? These are the things that we're trying to work with our state legislators on, because these are the kind of things that connect people. These are the things that do connect people in a completely different way. And so I decided, you know what, here's the best way of figuring this out. I'm going to expand this from 70 miles in 3 counties to 220 miles in 8 counties. And we're going to have to master plan the east side, which is Bridgeport to Huntsville, and then we're going to also have to master plan Decatur to the Shoals. And if I can't raise the money easily, then I know I made a mistake, and I probably need to go back into teaching. But the good news is that I'm not teaching, right? I'm not planning to teach again. So something happened. The eastern route master plan is $212,000. We raised that money in 36 days. The western trail is from Decatur to the Shoals. That took 42 days, and that money was raised for that as well. And so that was a cost share between the state legislators who voted us into the Education Trust Fund, the budget that gave us a earmark. It's also Google. It's also Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's also Toyota Motor Manufacturing. It's Mazda Toyota. It's down to, I even got a phone call from Larry's Pond. Go figure. I don't know what we're going to have that. We'll figure it out, you know. And I love all donations, by the way. So if there's any millionaires in the crowd, I'll gladly listen to you. But I want to understand something. We're working right now on the western route as fast as we are on the eastern route. And we're actually going to be having a public information meeting at the Cross-Eyed Owl Brewery in Decatur on June 14th. It's open to the public between 4 and 7. It's dropping. Listen, we'll buy your first beer. All right, that's how wide open we can be about this. Is that ultimately, this is about you coming in, us showing you maps, and you drawing on the lines. Where do you want these things? And so what I'm excited about is getting the public response and seeing what they say. Well, right now, this is the part that kind of suddenly changes. All right, so about a year or two ago, the state of Alabama commissioned something called the Innovation Commission through the state of Alabama and Governor Ivey. And they actually hired Stanford University, Condoleezza Rice's group, the Hoover Institute, to do a study about what does Alabama have in terms of innovation. All right, this is the most exciting part for me because this changed everything. You know what the #1 initiative that they figured out the lowest hanging fruit for growth in Alabama is? Outdoor recreation. All right, suddenly my job felt more secure. They interviewed 4 people in outdoor recreation, and I was one of them. All right, and what we talked about is this is the part I want you all to understand, because I'm getting to a point that comes back to you, promise, is that it's not just about health and wellness. It's not just about recreation. And it's not just about active transportation and connectivity. It's not just about tourism. It's also about economic development. This is the part that excites me most. It's about 60% of my day is about economic development and opportunity growth. The idea, this is something very exciting about. This has been a great week, by the way. So that fact I got caught in traffic has not ruined my week. I'll tell you why. So on Monday, I met with the Alabama Cooperative Extension Agency, and we're going to be partners. We're going to be signing letters soon here. So the co-op extension agents are about to become part of the St. River Trail. At the same time, Auburn University said, well, maybe you need a university gown. You know, I'm a UT guy. I graduated from Tennessee. Go off. Look at that, man. I hope, he gets a good reputation, right? I'm not hooking my ladder to him, right? Is that Auburn University might be on board, and they said, well, why don't we do a video together, and maybe we talk about Auburn and St. River Trail helping 8 counties, and we suddenly do this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh, what a great week. Yesterday, went to Leeton, Alabama. I got the mayor to say, hey, there's a thing called a TAP grant, which is a Transportation Alternative Grant. To get $1 million, you have to provide $200,000 in match. And for a small town of Leeton, which is 690 people, That's a hard thing to do. Well, I meet with the mayor, and he said, hey, I'll give you $100,000 if you can get me $100,000 to make out the full $200,000 match. I walked across the street to Bank Independent in Lincoln, Alabama, where the president of the bank actually is from. And I met with him yesterday, and he goes, well, how much do you need? And I said, man, like $100,000. He was like, it's done. How much do you need now? I'm like, well, you know, this is even getting better. So suddenly the small town of Lincoln, Alabama is about to get $1 million, hopefully, just for the fact that someone stepped up and the city stepped up. It takes both sides. It can't just be begging people like Parker. It can't be begging people, you know, just from the corporate side. It's got to be cost sharing. It's got to be working together. And then on top of that, I just got the Books A Million people just sent me an email today saying, hey, we've heard about your project about 19 times. How much money do you need and when do you need it? I'm like, all right, I don't know what I've done, but hopefully I still have good things ahead. But what I'm trying to tell you is the buy-in is complete and it's exciting because we're moving forward as fast as possible. And this is where you guys come in. Take the innovation report, outdoor recreation, take the corporate support, take the state support, take the local support, and I decided something on my own again. See, they did take away my freedom, I think. That's the problem. I have too much freedom. Why not, if we're talking about outdoor recreation, why not build a full ecosystem out that really lends itself to a full kind of experience in outdoor recreation? All right, so what does that mean? Well, we have a hiking trail that's going to go across North Alabama. And then I start looking at this map, and we have, I'm going to go in a different order here. We have Paint Rock River going through Jackson County. And then you go over to Colbert County, and they have Spring Creek that goes right into Escambia. And then you go to Colbert County, and you have, what do you have? You have Town Creek. And then in Lawrence County, you have Big Names Creek. And then you get to Decatur, and you have Flint Creek. And so I called Danielle yesterday, and I said, Danielle, I have an idea, and I hope you don't hate me for it. And she's on my board, too, so she can only hate me so much. Is that what if we also created a corresponding blueway paddleway system that will allow us to take these smaller tributaries, connect them to the route of the Singing River Trail, and then make some of our towns that we can't get to necessarily right now via trail a part of what we're trying to do. And she's like, so when do we start? I'm like, well, I think we start today, actually. And that's why she wishes she could be here. Is you all are our first opportunity that we thought about. Go ahead and click on that. Is that, and I'll explain this in a second here, is that ultimately Flint Creek has already been, the start of Flint Creek Blueway has already been built out partially, right? And I know you can go down this way and you can connect to the creek and all those things, and the Alabama Scenic River has done a fine job of telling you what's along those waterways, but here's the missing gap. How can we make tax revenue, opportunities, jobs, creation of anything that you all can dream of from Flint Creek and Hartselle? And so you all start looking at me like, what's too far away from downtown? It's called a greenway, all right? Is what if we make downtown the hub of activity, but then you're able to take a short, how far is Flint Creek from here? I don't know my geography well enough. This way.
3 miles.
How many? 3 miles? Okay. We all agree on 3 miles before I'm taking his word for it. He might be as crazy as he is. So, okay, 3 miles. So if we're starting to talk about low-hanging fruit, Flint Creek from Point Mallard up, all right, there's a lot of money involved in blueways and developing blueways. And what we have right now is like we have this scattering of things that Senator Orr has helped fund and put together. But it kind of ends. It's not really something, it's not an initiative that your town is pushing. It's not an initiative that's being pushed by anyone other than just it's there and you get online and you can find it. So what if we begin to look at it from the perspective of there's money that way, right? There's also outdoor recreation and value, and there's also quality of life, and there's also health and wellness. And suddenly now we begin to work on the idea of, okay, so if that's the lowest hanging fruit and we want to get to there, and maybe we do is we think about a greenway system that goes straight out towards that, so you can now walk or ride your bike. You can stay downtown somewhere. I don't think you're not doing Airbnbs yet, I don't think, are you? You're not supposed to be, I don't think, but we'll get you there. Danielle's hell bent on that, by the way, so you will be there. I've told her no, and it's never stuck. So the idea of how to make this an outdoor area, and you all don't have mountains like Jackson County. You all don't have, you're not on the Tennessee River per se, but you're on a tributary that matters to a lot of people. And what we want to do is bundle these together. So we met with Tammy Reese and we met with Lisa Tell and said, okay, if we build this Singing River Trail paddleway system out, that would take the Paint Rock, Flint Creek, Big Dance, Town Creek, Spring Creek, and then one more, Big Bear, I think we're gonna probably end up doing for purely political reasons, is that ultimately, now you can package these to people out of town and say, hey, come float for a week. And by the way, make sure you stop at the coffee shop and at the pizza shop and make sure you do all these things before you head out. So Danielle and I started doing some work, and guess what? There's a volunteer fire department that's already doing rentals on kayaks and canoes about halfway down, and they're willing to take care of Flint Creek so people up here can actually get all the way to the bottom. Now we're only one guy or one woman with a F-150 and a trailer that wants to shuttle people back to where they started a new business, by the way, and all of a sudden now you have a full ecosystem that's connecting. You connect yourself even more to things like the Singing River Trail, to the Tennessee River line, to the Tennessee River, and to Decatur, and now you have that ability to start, while you get off the highway, there's something else to do, outdoor recreation, and that's the thing that we're hoping to do. So real quickly before I go to the next slide, what I want you to understand is that all these things hopefully now apply to you. Is if we can start the discussion of what would this look like eventually, and I can give you a lot more information, is that this is the part that I love: equity, connectivity, and mobility. That your folks downtown suddenly have an outlet. I just got back from New England. I did an 8-day trip across New England with my family, and every town in Vermont, I swear every town in Vermont, was connected to something that just made it so fun and cool and neat and different. And like, be it a river, a mountain, a moose, like we found a moose just walking around, geese, whatever they call them in mooses. The idea, there's no geese, by the way, don't be telling people I said geese, is that what I'd love for you all to do is feel like you bought into something. Go ahead. And one of the things I want to make sure, this is actually part of the Singing River Trail that's been built in South Huntsville. So that's 14 feet wide. That's what it looks like. That's going to connect Ditto Lynn into downtown. And they're already beginning to do economic forecasting on this. And what I can tell you is this, is that when you look at that trail, and that's, again, 14 feet wide, by that connectivity right there, just by being next to that's a new development that's going in South Huntsville, it raises the average house price by between 7 and 10%, just by being along the Singing River Trail. That connectivity also means that businesses now want to be a part of it. So Fractal Brewing, if you've ever been there, suddenly they want to know, well, how can we connect to this so we can have people riding up? And all of a sudden, people have something to focus on. If you go to the beach, it's called the beach. So when state legislators get together and say, we need to fund the beach, there's a corridor that people can envision, and guess what? They win a lot of money, right? Okay, well, we have a corridor. It's called the Tennessee River, and hopefully it's now going to be called the Singing River Trail. All right, go ahead and click. But ultimately, I put this out. I wanted to show you something. All right, this is what the Alabama Scenic River and Morgan counties put out, right? So what you see here is you see the beginnings of something that's great, right? They mapped it out. They stopped. They put all the campgrounds. I can tell you this right now. I can bring you a company right now that is looking for farmers willing to put RV plots on their property, and you can pull in your RV, pay a usage fee, and they'll boondock out there. And I also have a yurt company that's looking everywhere. These are the kind of places they want to be in. A yurt, if you know what a yurt is, glamping yurt, okay? So the idea is, how do we begin to make this valuable, not just as you have it, but how do you make it valuable so you're now getting something out of it, all right, as a group of individuals downtown especially. So when you see that big green Hartselle thing, the first thing Danielle said is, golly, I wish it went right through downtown. It's like Creek that is. And I'm like, yeah, I do too, but it doesn't, right? And we can't change that. Now, Hartselle may go that way, but ultimately, the downtown is not going to get any closer from the creek, but it can, right? And so what I'd say is, the best part about this is imagine being able to park here and take a bike ride. If you had bikes at a bike share program, by the way, we just worked with Decatur, City Decatur, and the part that I love is we went in together and we got Regents Bank, Blue Cross Blue Shield to fund a bike share program. We could get the same thing here. Imagine having bikes out here that you could buy, you could swipe your card and you could rent a bike and go down to the creek and maybe rent a canoe or kayak, go down a little bit, come back, get on your bike, come down here and do your thing, right? Sounds impossible? No, it's weird, it's not. That's the best part about this. I'm not trying to get to Mars. There's no moonshot here. I'm trying to get to Hartselle. Right? I'm trying to get to Madison. I'm trying to get to Sheffield. I'm trying to get to, Scottsboro. So when people use moonshot references, being like, man, stop. This isn't hard. right? This is literally building a sidewalk, an extra wide sidewalk, to something that matters and for the Creek to matter. So with that being said, I'd like to change this because the scenic river idea is a great one, but there's no real, what do we do with it? How do we work with it? And this is where your leadership comes in, is that, especially with ARPA money and the tourism money that's about to start coming out, and your state legislators and your business owners, this is where you can begin to make that push for, we want a slice of whatever is about to happen, because we do have outdoor recreation here. We do have opportunities. And so we're right now working in Marshall. So these are some of the action plans we're working on right now. Is to cater to the shoals, as we're currently working on. So if you do want to come on the 14th, that's what we'll be talking about. Marshall County right now, as I was over there yesterday working with them, and they actually want to go from Scottsboro across the river down to Lake Guntersville and then into Guntersville. And so imagine being able to ride from imagine being ride from Scottsboro across the bridge and then down the other side of the Tennessee River to Lake Guntersville State Park. So what I love to do, and this is the best part, your county is already invested in us, all right? So Commissioner Long, Chairman Long, has already dedicated $50,000 to us for the action plan in Morgan County. Decatur's already kicked in an extra $25,000. We have that for this, and then we also have some state money and some private money. So when I come to you, I'm not coming like this, okay? I got my money that I can do. We can do this right now. But here's what I've learned. You have to have skin in the game. It doesn't work if I have the money. So the skin is you're going to put skin in the game, all right? And if you don't, that's fine. No hard feelings. I'll come and I'll eat at your restaurants and I'll do the things that are here. But I think it's important to understand is we have 25 communities that have skin in the game, and it works very, very well. We have one that doesn't, and they abuse me. And so their day is coming, I'll tell you that. I'm on call all the time, like, man, for not giving anything, you guys are very pushy. I won't name the name Paint Rock. Sorry. There's no one Paint Rock here. Okay, Paint Rock's a little pushy. But it's great, because you know why? Nothing has gone well in Paint Rock for a long, long time. And so for them to be pushy is actually kind of different for them. This is a good sign. They're getting, I think, spun up into thinking about what the future looks like. And so for you all, go ahead and click it, is what I want you to recognize is that we can blend this and tie this in to outdoor recreation, outdoor hospitality, the idea of innovation. Like, what can we do with this space? What can we do if we had bike share program? You know, imagine your kids being able to go out safely and do something. The idea is taking the Singing River Valley approach, right? Not Singing River Trail approach, but the Valley approach is then we begin to layer businesses, we begin to layer ideas. You know, those are the kind of things I would love to be able to do. If you have a Boys and Girls Club here, which I don't know if you do or not, is that I would love for you to be able to have those kids go outside and do an urban forestry program in a safe spot, walk down to the river and go find tadpoles and do things that we used to do, right? Okay, get dirty, get muddy. You know, so when I facetiously made this slide, tread on me, I've had a couple people like, man, that seems a little political. I'm like, well, I'm a historian. I actually know where that came from, right? Don't tread on me. Well, guess what? We're a greenway. Tread on me. This is what we want. We want you to walk all over us. And hopefully what you're going to eventually find out is that Hartselle is a better place with us, and we're a better place with Hartselle. Good. And so these are just a few of the sponsors, not all of them, but these are the ones that you recognize, hopefully. And the ones that for us matter, not that no one else that's not on here doesn't matter, but these are the kind of the good housekeeping seal of approvals for us. And lastly, in case any of you are interested, you can take a picture of this. This is easy. I used to get out my credit card, my business card. Go ahead and click on it. Or not. There you go. That's how you get a hold of me. I have a slide of all my contact information. That's okay. That's fine. I do have my business card. But Crystal knows how to get a hold of me. A number of you do. But what I'd love to do is begin the conversation of what can we do to make this happen. If there's interest. If there's not, again, I'll come back and visit. You know, no hard feelings. But I think we have an opportunity. And if Danielle was right here, she would say, he's always right. Listen to him. Make sure you get that on video. And she's not here to say otherwise, so that means I'm always right, I guess. Are there any questions or any concerns or any ideas, or should I go home?
No, let's ask questions. I have a question. So as far as a community and what I'm hearing as far as next steps, you're you're saying for us to really get involved with an action plan is for us to decide if there's a way we want to invest and what comes out of that investment.
I would say this. First thing is I get a small group of people together and say, do we want this? If you want this, I think then is what do you want? If there is like, hey, we don't really want a greenway, but we want a blue way, that's fine. That's what we're about to get into business of. And so that's fine as well. And then from there, what we can do is look at a scope of what we can do and the consultants that I'm using, what we're going to do to be able to really flush this out and really try to give you something that's not just a piece of paper that says, hey, in 20 years, good luck. It's more of an action plan. That's why I don't call them master plans anymore. An action plan really highlighting what can you all do with elbow grease and effort? What can you all do if you have $1 billion and Bill Gates and everything in between? And so it's not just like, hey, here's pie in the sky stuff. We did that the first time I went out, the consultants that put my stuff together, it was that. It was all pie in the sky. I'm like, oh my gosh, halfway through, I'm like, I'm dying up here. And then I realized if we don't have actionable items, if we don't have things that can be obtained by simply saying, man, if we have 10 people with chainsaws and kayaks and canoes, if we went out there, I'm not saying go out there and do that, okay? I'm not saying that's what we're gonna do, but that's one of those things you can do. And that's the part I think, what's the appetite, what do you want? And from there, we can begin to talk about how do we begin to blend. Morgan County's behind you, Danielle's behind you. I think Tab is, when I told him about where I was going and what I'm doing, he was very excited because it still adds value to Decatur's as well. And then you all are officially part of the Singing River Trail. And I think from the marketing part, Tammy Reese, if she was here, would be very excited by the fact that, again, you're building that Singing River Valley approach, that linear, it's not the beach, but it's a place that we can identify is important.
Another more practical question. So even the mapping out of the trail and contacting the private landowners and all that stuff, is that what your organization takes on? Or is that something that we do and present to y'all? No.
That's so when you buy in, so I tell people if you don't use me like a rented mule, you've wasted your money. Now I've told this to people and they've actually done it. So, but what I'd say no, what you're right now. I was in Lincoln yesterday talking with two of the largest landowners. Now, what I'd say it works a lot better if you're with someone that knows the large landowners. And so this is where the win-win comes in. Is so we'll do the GIS, the mapping, all the stuff that goes with that, as part of the scope of what we're going to show you. But then also it takes people. It takes people that are from Hartselle and from Morgan County to say, hey, I'd like you to meet John. And then, open that door. If you want to stay and listen and participate, great. And if you don't, our state legislators, and I mean, this is probably part of this, like the third time he's had to listen to me. But it's probably one of those things where our state legislators have also become very active. Janie Keel, Proncy Robertson, Anthony Daniels, Andy Witt, Parker, these are all folks that have gotten behind us and helped us. And so it's just a matter of figuring out, it's kind of square dancing, right? It starts off slowly, so we're trying to figure out where we stand, and then suddenly you realize, okay, I think I got this. And so for us, it would really be about just sitting down with a small group of people and saying, what do we want to do and how do we want to do it? And then the part that I also like is that because you do have the county commission behind this, is I think there's an opportunity for us to reach out to them as well and say, okay, we're adding Hartselle to this, and it matters. And we'd like that to be acknowledged and also funded as part of what they're doing. Oh, question.
Okay, so are you talking about having 2 trails, or what is the realistic of coming across the river, and where would you cross the river at?
You mean Decatur?
Yes.
Okay, so I
Get
can't.
rid of the pimple off.
Yes, the pimple has been removed. We have lanced the pimple, and that has been a very, sorry, that's a grotesque So what I like, this is something I wish I could show you, but I can't, all right? And what I'd like to tell you is we just had a meeting last week with about 30 people in the room. Tab, Senator Orr, G.D. Payne, if anybody knows the whirlwind known as. They have actually spent about $50,000 on our behalf to get a structural engineer and architect from Chicago to come down, and he spent the last 4 months drawing up a concept of a pedestrian walkway across the east bridge on the northbound lane. So this side bridge, this in downtown Decatur. Okay? And so not the ones over here, the ones over here. It is unbelievable what they put up. And the first thing Tab said was, we're doing this. So that made me feel very good because the price tag is not small, about $30 million. But what they want to do is they want to become the centerpiece of the Tennessee River. In the middle of the river, they want to highlight and showcase that we're the star of the Tennessee River Valley. And so hopefully what we're going to be able to do is cross from there is, we've actually just thrown up the action plan for Decatur, is come across the bridge. We're also going to have a western terminus. And then from there, you're going to go from Rhodes Ferry westward, past kind of, we're going to go downtown, and then from kind of Rhodes Ferry, I don't know how well you all know Decatur, but Rhodes Ferry to where our St. McGee's is, that's called Lafayette Street, is we're going to have to make a kind of a connection down there, hit the Bill Sims Trail, which is an existing 12-mile trail, and then we're due west out towards Trinity. And so for us, it's just a matter of making these connections. So your question about is there two separate trails? The Blue Way and the Greenway are separate but connected. That's connected initially. But the Greenway is going to be a connected route. And the part that excites me is Mooresville, I can't talk a lot about this either, Mooresville, sorry, I can't talk about these things, is about to really undertake something huge that will make a huge connection from this side. And then the TVA just bought 3,000 acres to make a solar farm in this direction between Trinity and Pond Spring, and we've already been drawn into their plans. Portland has already drawn us out through their downtowns, so has Town Creek, and so has Cleveland. So all of a sudden you're looking at these kind of these pinpoints of activation that are happening in downtown Decatur. They're happening all the way to Leaton, and then going the other direction too. So for us, this is a natural way of growing out a Blue Way system, and you all are a great place to start. This is the exciting part. When I go to Paint Rock Valley, you know where you start? You start at a 500-acre farm in the middle of nowhere with a boat ramp or a boat launch. All right? I mean, it's beautiful beyond belief. But what I love for this is if I know I'm about to do a half day or a full day float, what I love is I can have dinner or lunch, I can get a drink, whatever I need to go do this can start right here. That's the part that I think excites me from your all's perspective. You become the hub of activity that's about to go, in that direction.
Can you mention maybe some things like this that are happening at a national level that you've modeled this after?
Yeah.
And some of the impact?
The Tennessee River Line is a 652-mile initiative that connects Knoxville to Paducah, Kentucky, and that's a Blue Way system. There's actually a bunch of them. In New England, almost every town had some connector route that connected their town to some nearby stream that went down a certain a certain mileage, and then they had a way for you to get back. And so, this is a growing aspect of what a lot of folks are doing. Mississippi River has one. There's a lot of Blue Ways. And the thing, I'll tell you this is something to think about. Have any of you been to Columbus, Georgia? Okay, Columbus, Georgia, I just went down there to meet with them. Columbus, Georgia has a combined Blue Way and Greenway system. Since 2011, they just invested their $50 million into the system that they have along the river and the Greenway system. And you might go, oh my gosh, that's so much money. At the same time they were spending their $50 million, they were also realizing their $1 billion return. And I can bring you all the statistics. In fact, we may rent a bus. Danielle's thinking about this, and going down to Columbus, and one of you guys go kayaking and walking. Say, we can buy you a boat. Is that $50 million gets you $1 billion. It's a lot of, that's a bigger town. There's industry. There's Fort Benning. There's a lot of things there. But what I'm trying to show you is there's also a lot of money involved and a lot of opportunity involved. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So besides the 14-foot trail that you have in some places, what does a Blue Way or a Greenway look like? How do you know, like downtown, how would you know that they're seeing river trails?
Signage. A lot of it's placemaking and signage. And placemaking is a big part of what I do too, is the idea of knowing that you're somewhere, right? That's a great question. The question was, how do you know you're on it? Signage, placemaking. So in Decatur, we're going to use public art and signage. In Leaton, we're actually, the Muscle Shoal Sound literally started in Leaton with Jimmy Hughes and with Percy Sledge. And so we're going to start a musical heritage part of this with signage and the Singing River Trail. And I wish I had it with me. We're actually going to do, everyone's doing murals now on the walls around their town. We've actually proposed through ALDOT, we're going to do a road mural through Leaton, where you actually drive over it, and it's kind of a history of Leaton as you're driving over it. We actually tried to get rumble strips that play a song. That's a no. LDOT doesn't like those things. So, I know. Like when a man loves a woman, come on. Like,
Yeah,
it's,
there you go.
So, but the idea, that's a great question because I think it's an important one, is that, for a lot of long format trails, really long trails, the idea is when you're on it, it's a bit like the Appalachian Trail. There's a lot of opportunity along the Appalachian Trail. You're hiking along this, from Georgia to Maine, but you have to know where you are and you have to know what it's about. So part of that is working together to make sure that Hartselle is always the primary, but we're the secondary, but that when you're on it, where you're near it. I think the big thing is how do you blend in to where it just becomes part of who you are. Any other questions? Yeah.
Got a question. How does Athens fit into this lane downtown?
Athens?
Yeah, Athens.
Okay, I'm good. Well, hey, no, that's great. No. So in fact, there's a 13-mile trail north of Athens called the Richard Martin Rails and Trails. So we're working with them right now. The city of Belmont called me and said, hey, we want on this thing. And there's a gap between this 13-mile trail and there's a 3.5-mile trail called Swan Creek Greenway in the city of Athens. There's a 3-mile gap. So we made a proposal. We gave them the route. And we said, this is what it would cost to build this 3-mile connector. If we build this, they'll connect Richard's Trail to Swan Creek and then this 3 miles. We claim it all, though. That's the thing. We built it. We claim the whole thing. The part that I love is this actually triggered another conversation. Well, do you know that there's a 7-mile sewer line that would be going from downtown Athens all the way down to Calhoun Community College? Well, I now know this, and I'm excited about it because we proposed that we use that sewer easement as a trail route. And we got the okay through City of Athens and the Sewer Authority. And so now you're talking about you can literally, within a few years, go from the state border of Tennessee and Alabama, Richard Martin Trail, all the way down to Calhoun Community College, all right? And now Decatur is working this way, and so what we're trying to do is just that, connect it. And so for us, Athens State University and their new city park are also part of where we're going to be as well. So, and they pay for it. That's the thing. This is the part. Athens State University paid for their part of the planning. The city of Athens paid for their part of the planning. Some of the state legislators kicked in, and now he's gone. So we start talking money, and Parker left. Is that's how you begin. That's part of my job too, is to begin this coalition building of. It's not just Hartselle sitting on a perch by itself saying, "Man, good luck. I hope it works." It's who do we talk to? How do we talk with them? Who are your employers? These are the folks in Jackson County. Literally, the chairman of the county, Bill Nance, literally walked into Google and said, "Fund this guy because this is quality of life." If we're trying to get the people in Jackson County for Google, we don't have anything, right, to show off with. And so this is where we begin that process. This is where it is. This is just the first off. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I saw on your, all the people that are backing you have the national parks, which is great, but where does Fish and Wildlife fall on this?
So Fish and Wildlife falls, Wheeler Wildlife Refuge is one of our, I don't want to call them sponsors, it makes it sound like they gave us something, but stakeholders. They're one of our original stakeholders. We have permission to use their property, the gravel roads that go through there. So from Mooresville to, from the airport to Mooresville, there's a lot of trails back there that we can use. So they're on board. The problem when you use the federal government, this is not a knock on federal, I don't care about that, is when you start working with the federal folks, the rules change a whole lot. And so we're trying to avoid as much, like if I want to put a sign in downtown Hartselle that says you're on the Singer Trail, we can all go out and do it together. If I want to put that same,
You gotta have outlaw approval.
well, okay, off the road. All right, off the road, if I just want to put up something, I can put it up without having to go through. If I'm in Wheeler Wildlife Refuge, I literally have to have an archaeological study done and an environmental study done to put a post in on the ground. And so we know that's coming, but that's the kind of thing you say, okay, we'll get there when we get there. But we're with Wheeler and TVA, because remember, TVA is federal, is that TVA is also one of our big sponsors too. So it's really working now. I'll tell you this, is if you want to know the president and the vice president of no, is typically TVA is the president of the answer no. ALDOT typically is one of the purveyors of no. But the railroads, any railroad people here, because railroads don't know anything but And so for us, it's really trying to just work the long game of, hey, we're back. Hey, TVA. They're like, this is like the 14th time. So I got no, I just got to baby. And so that took me about 10 meetings from no to baby. But that's what you have to do. And you stay positive. You know, 'cause if I just say, hey, this is what we want, great, but that's not what you're going to get. So, any other questions? Yeah.
3 weeks ago, on a recommendation, I went down to the creek here to paddle on it for the first time.
Okay.
My son down there, and we were all excited. We got in the water and we went up downstream about 7 minutes until it was so blocked with so many trees there was no way past. Jackson had bought his chainsaw out there, so we were stuck. But I said it was a real pretty place, but I said it's the world's shortest kayaking route.
And that's something so the comment was basically you got to maintain these things. And so one of the things that Danielle and I talked to the fire department about is would you be willing to maintain the trail from this spot all the way down with people with chainsaws? And they said, yeah, we can make money off this, and it helps raise money for the fire department. So those are the kind of things you realize every time it rains hard and there's things flooding down the river, things happen, right? So we want to change that, formalize it. And stuff like that happens too. Yes. Well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And again, I'm sorry that I'm late, but I just wanted to thank you one more time. And hopefully we can have another meeting, another talk. And hopefully you guys are interested enough so when Danielle gets back from marketing college, we have good news for her and she won't be on me.
Tap dancing a little bit before you got here, but I wanted you to have a chance to hear who all was in the room. So if y'all would just take a quick second to stand and introduce yourself and tell what company that you were with. I know John would be interested in knowing that. So Daxton, would you go first?
Jackson, my RTC. I'm thinking a little from the Piedmont Group.
I'll say.
I'm Phil Schmidt from Cyril Wire Company here in town.
Khaki Bolding with Decatur Morgan, but I formerly was with the Boys and Girls Club. Good to see you. Maisie Eaton, WQA Radio. Terry Seller, assistant with Terry Watson at Walmart Real Estate.
You just said Terry Watson, Walmart Real Estate.
Wes Atkinson, attorney at Redstone Title Services.
Darren Urban Alter.
Tina Towers, Hartselle City Schools. Dina Nagel, Jeremy Sazan, Travel Agency. Beth Lynn, Hartselle Area Chamber. Hannah Nitton, Hartselle Area Chamber. Christina Surge, Christina Surge, Manchester.
Paul Blackman, Pastor Reed Blackman. Randy Garrison, City of Marshall.
David Evans, I'm with Hartselle Camp Meeting. It's a nonprofit religious organization.
Brent Gotham, Ramsey Preferred Financial Coach.
I'm Jennifer Malone, Coleman Regional and Hartselle Health Park.
I'm Beth Kirshner. I own Zoe's Downtown, and I'm also on the Chamber Conference.
Bill Puckett, Ware Howell, CPAs.
Susan Puckett, retired English instructor from Calhoun.
Laura Rich, I have a Main Street business, but also a farm that touches Fleet Creek.
God, I appreciate that.
I think I'm on it.
For to get to know all of you, hopefully, you know, again, if the interest is there, it's there, and if it's not, it's not. But what I'd love to do is have another meeting. I mean, the mayor's here. It's really up to you all how you want to move next. No, there's no pressure, and that next time I'll look at GPS before I drive down 65. I think that there's an opportunity here that really could lead to a lot of things for you guys. So thank you for kind of the breadth of folks that are here. This is great. Thank you.
Any next steps that you might want to be a part of. So thank you very much.
so glad you came today.